G'day and welcome to another episode of Tech Adapt Crafts. My name is Anthony and today we are looking at Orc Huts. Today we are delving back into history of White Dwarf magazines, specifically issue 192, December of some year most of you were never born in. This is going back into my history of when I was just really beginning in making terrain, and the articles in here are fantastic. Some of the things that are in these old White Dwarfs, it's a wonderful treasure trove of articles. So this one actually comes from the Raid article, which was a campaign between orcs and dark elves for Warhammer Fantasy, and it was by Ian Pickstock and Jake Thornton. These two had this fantastic campaign between orcs and dark elves, and it was a fun little battle that they had, but they made some specific terrain. Now the terrain tutorial in that it's not that comprehensive, but it did the job. I have not made one of these orc huts in many years. Like, we're probably talking 25 years since I've made one of these, and it was really good to get back and make one. I have not made it exactly the same as what they did in the article, but I'm very happy with how they've turned out. This actually began as a little terrain project in one of the club terrain days during the January holidays. We all came in together, sorted out our terrain, and then did a terrain workshop, how to build a little orc hut. This one was my demonstration one I did on that terrain day. This is the one I've just built this week. But the other ones here are all made by members of the club. I've had to repaint some of it, not because of the paint jobs, but because I forgot what color schemes we were actually using during the terrain day, and then had to go over and repaint them so they all matched. So we have our orcs here from last week's painting tactics. We have some goblins here that I painted quite a few months ago, and painted some of these with a friend of mine who was learning how to paint. We've got our river system that we've done before, and the ford coming over into the orc village. The scene, very simple to set up, and it just provides a little avenue for a D&D campaign. They're maybe having to go talk to an orc village. This might be the setting for a Warhammer Fantasy, or now an Age of Sigmar, the Orcs. You can tell from this just how easy it is to start building up a little scene. If you'd like to see any other orc projects, let me know in the comments below. There's ideas like a watchtower or a chieftain's hut, maybe a food store for the orcs. Let me know what you'd like to see, if you'd like to see another orc building. Also coming up, just another reminder that coming up very soon, we'll be starting a Patreon. And if you are interested in joining that and getting an STL every month from a leading 3D modeler and an early release painting tutorial from me, let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in joining that. The Patreon will be uploading at the end of April, and the first live month will be May. So if you are interested in that, let me know below. Okay, sit back, enjoy the tutorial, and I'll see you at the end. Cheers. So here we are with issue 192, which I believe was from 1995. The Raid article has this little build project in it for an orc hut. Using a Pringles can, or in my case I'm using a Woolies no-name version. It's just slightly bigger and gives a good variety of shapes and sizes for this orc village. Cut off that lip at the end where the lid will actually be attached, as you want it nice and flush. Mark off a 40 or 50 centimeter height. You can have different heights because they could have different height buildings, that's fine. Score, then cut. Then you want to draw out a base on some corrugated cardboard. I double draw. I draw the inner and outer circle of the base. That way I know where I'm going to put the glue later. I then draw an extra rim around the outside and cut that out. You want to sand down the outside of these, that way the paint will actually stick to it easier. Then you want to cut out a door frame. Again, score, then cut. Sand down those edges. We're now doing a door, which I'm cutting out of cardboard. This is not for the actual door, this is to place the door on, so that I can actually have it recessed in. Now to the roof, I'm using cereal box cardboard, and yes, you may be able to tell there's a real green theme today. I am drawing a circle, I'm then cutting it out with my Stanley knife. I make an incision, bend it out as a cone, and then cut off some of that excess just so it will actually bend easier. Hot glue is what I've used to attach this. You could sit there with PVA glue and wait, but I needed to do these in a hurry. Sand down that edge so that when you put the plaster on later, it actually goes on a little easier. Using hot glue now, again, I'm attaching that inner door frame where I can attach my door to later. Glue the base to the roof. You saw there I marked on in pencil where I would need to put the glue. Now to create the door, I'm actually using balsa wood so I can carve into that. I use the piece that I cut out of the door to give me a template, but it is slightly big, so I had to trim it down. Then draw on your wooden frames. You'll see later I wasn't quite happy with how deep I had drawn this, so I did go over it. But it is very easy to carve into balsa. We are now going into the plastering of the sides. I am using that plaster mix I've done before and mixing that up, but without sand for the roof. So I am simply putting this plaster straight onto the top, getting it roughly as smooth as possible, and then using the point of the spoon to cut like straw length in it. It's going to look a bit like some sort of thatch roof. I then add a little bit of sand just to give a bit of texture and put that on the walls of the hut. This, again, gives you just that little bit of extra texture. Glue the door in place now. It's better to actually stick it in after you've done that, and that way you don't get it all over the door. A layer of Mod Podge, I've got this with a bit of black into it, and this goes over everything. It will help to seal it, to help join it all together and stop some of that plaster cracking off later. Glue the base down. I tend to do this afterwards just so I don't get everything all over the base, but I'm putting sand on the base later. Using hot glue to attach that. Now to paint the roof, this is with Star Anise all over that roof. Don't forget underneath as well. Nice thick covering, you don't want any of the black showing through. I also use this to paint the door, as it will give a nice woody feel. Next, onto timber beam. This is a really nice bright color to use on the walls to give a nice sandy sort of feel there. We're now putting glue onto the base. I'm using a PVA glue. No, PVA glue I don't think is quite right, but anyway. And then using a mix of sand and rocks all over that base. Once that is fully dry, that base then gets a layer of paint with a mid-grey. Mine is just made from a mix of white and black craft paint. For this part I do use a smaller brush which has a flat edge. That makes it a lot easier to get into that edge and not hit the rest of the wall. Now I'm going back in and redrawing over that wooden door frame. After I've painted with Mod Podge and then with paint, a lot of that detail was going away, so I just redrew a lot of that door frame in. I'm also adding in the two beams across the door because they were on all of the other buildings, and I thought, well, I need to match them up. I carve up those pieces a little bit to make them look a bit rougher, and then rub them on the mat there. Just it takes off the edge, and then glue those on. Next colour is Seasoned Acorn. This is a dry brush, or a fairly heavy dry brush, or maybe an overbrush, onto the roof. This just lightens that and brings out all of that grain. Very lightly I am using that Seasoned Acorn as a dry brush on the door frame, and I'm using a lighter grey now to dry brush onto all of the stone
around the base. At the very end of that, the life of that dry brush, I'm using the dregs on the brush to very lightly dry brush the door frame. We're now moving on to J. Burroughs acrylic sand, and this is the dry brush to go over the wall. Really brings out all of the detail of that plaster and makes it look like it's very much caked on there. Lightly dry brush the tips of the roof just to give a little variation. I also later put just a little bit on the top of the roof, and again using just the dregs on the door frame. We're now going to flock the base, and again you do not want to do all over that base, you want to show the rocks through, so I'm just doing patches here and there. But one thing I did do is I never put any of the grass on any of the patches in front of the doors on any of these huts. I think that's just one little feature that helps to tie them together.
There you have it, the Orc Hut. Pretty simple, right? Pretty sure that everyone here can actually do that one. And not only that, you get to eat some Pringles. I'd love to see your version of the Orc Hut, or see if you follow this tutorial, what you come up with. So send me your photos on Instagram at TechAdaptCrafts. You can follow us there. We have update photos. All of the individual tactics from last week were all up there as an individual file, and there are a lot of other projects that I'm doing that I might just be putting up a little work in progress photo for that, but not necessarily doing a full video. I'd just like to say a big shout out to a friend of mine. Eddie Wu has lent me a new camera. Well, not a new, well, has lent me an old camera of his and a lapel mic, so hopefully everything is actually working a lot better. I will say the quality of the shots that I've been looking at, so much better, so I really appreciate that. And to Ian, thank you very much. The lighting, I think, is really making a big difference when I'm painting, just being able to see the miniatures properly, not using a yellow light, using a decent light. Yep, I'm working through it. We'll get there in the end. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment down the bottom. And we'd love to see you joining us on Instagram as well as joining us on Patreon when that opens up at the end of April. Until next time, stay safe, keep hobbying, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.